Hello everyone, as you can hear, it's Adrian from the team here on China Manufacturing Decoded, joined by our CEO, Renaud. Renaud, hi.
Hey, Adrian. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. After a recent trip around Europe, which proved to be a bit of a nightmare in terms of the flights because everything's a mess these days because of COVID and maybe staff absences and all the rest of it. Oh man, I don't know if I want to be flying anytime soon again.
Right. Big mess. A lot of canceled flights, a lot of bags misplaced or worse. Yeah.
Take my advice, people. If you're thinking of flying soon within Europe and you don't need to take checked luggage, don't. Just go with your hand luggage. Trust me, you won't regret it.
Yes.
Back safely in the UK now, just in time for 38-degree weather as well. So
right.
everybody was like dying because of that as well, because we're not used to it here. So yeah, just a challenging few days for me, definitely.
Enjoy the sun, as someone in your government said.
Nice. Well, the less said about them, the better, I think. But everybody was really enjoying the fires. I don't know about the sun, but what a mess. So we're on episode 118 now, and actually really closing in on 20,000 downloads. So for everybody that's regularly listening and downloading, that is awesome. Thank you very much. We salute you.
Oh, nice. It's not per episode yet.
No. That'd be amazing, but maybe in time, yeah.
Right.
The topic is an interesting one. We're talking about buying parts from Taobao and why using those for mass producing our products is dangerous. And I think this comes from a recent chat that we've had with one of our clients on the topic. And it was sort of so interesting that I thought this is a good one to actually share on the podcast. So it might sound kind of innocuous to think, well, I'll just get parts from Taobao. People on there have got them. It seems like an easy place to go and get the stuff that I need. But actually, that would not necessarily be a good idea, right?
Right. Well, maybe we should introduce what Taobao is, because maybe some people are not familiar with that. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's Taobao, and you can go there, Taobao. It's one of the biggest websites in China, I'm sure, right? It's part of the Alibaba group, which is a huge group. It's much more than the Alibaba directory of suppliers. Oh, in 2021, Taobao was the 8th most visited website globally. Can you imagine? That's just huge.
Yeah, probably kind of unknown to a lot of Western users or listeners. They might never have seen it or heard of it. Yeah, you're right. Right.
And a little bit of history. There was a time where eBay was really a big thing in North America, and I think also in Europe, and maybe 15 years ago. I don't remember exactly when, but at one point they said, hey, let's go into China. That's a huge market also, right? And Jack Ma and the Alibaba crew said, whoa, this is really not, they're coming on our territory. This is not good. We do sort of business to business, but in China, the line between what is business versus consumer is not always very well defined. It's not like maybe in the US or in the UK. Okay, in China, and everybody has noticed that, I guess, after doing some business with China. People use their personally made addresses for professional messages. They use WeChat with it's their personal WeChat account. You don't have a personal one and a professional one. It's really their personal one. So they get your messages together with their family's messages and their schoolmates' messages and whatnot. It's all mixed. Right? In China, there's really this absence of boundaries in certain areas of people's lives, and that's why Alibaba said, "Well, wait a minute. this stuff is consumer to consumer or business to business, but actually is the same thing. It's facilitating the sale of products online, and they went really strong against eBay, and they pulled out their own version where actually nobody pays. How to say? The business model is a little bit different. Taobao makes money because the sellers pay more to be more visible. It's like they pay advertisements. Okay, whereas on eBay, I think eBay takes a cut of the money that is paid from the buyer to the seller. So it's a different business model, maybe a bit closer to what Chinese people can readily accept. Long story short is eBay just exited the market after a few years, and the tiny Alibaba, at the time was a tiny company, gained a lot of face, and really their profile really raised a lot in China, and wow, really well done, against the very large American company, blah blah blah. Okay, so right now Taobao is a huge e-commerce platform. It's there's Amazon, let's say in North America and Europe, and there's Taobao, and to a lesser extent Tmall in China, right? And if you ask Chinese people what they buy, all kinds of little things, they will say Taobao.
Yeah.
Just like if I ask somebody here in Europe, they will say Amazon. Taobao probably has a higher penetration rate, so it's even more common. Okay, and as I said, it's consumer to consumer, and it's mostly for cheap stuff. Okay, it's for relatively inexpensive products where you don't need to have a lot of trust in the seller. Usually brands, and especially luxury brands, rather than being on Taobao, they're on Tmall, Tmall. But Taobao is sort of the low end of that, right? That's really my point. And you have a lot of people who are sellers on Taobao. They do it, nights and weekends after their normal job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of people, gathering stuff from, whatever, something that's unsold or something. They say, oh, can I put it on my Taobao shop and see if I can sell it? And then I'll buy the rest from you. What kind of price can you give me? Right? That's quite common. A lot of Chinese people like to have sort of their own little business on the side. Okay. Yeah. And actually nowadays, if you go to Huaqiangbei, the big electronic component market in Shenzhen, I should say the enormous electronic component markets, you have a bunch of little stalls, a lot of little stands, and you walk by and you see what they sell, and most of them are also on Taobao. Okay, and most of them are not manufacturing companies. They buy from a manufacturer, they buy from another intermediary, and then sell it to you. And it's really, predominantly, again, I have to repeat, consumer to consumer. Now, there's a lot of businesses selling on Taobao, but sort of selling as consumers, if I may say that. And I'm going to get back to that a little bit later. And you also have a lot of businesses buying on Taobao for their punctual needs, whatever. Oh, we need a new chair, or we need a new something, a few pens and some office supplies and this and that. Yeah, let's go on Taobao. It's cheap. There's a lot of choice, and we get delivered fast. And what's not to like? Again, for cheap office supplies, it's great. You get delivered pretty fast. The sellers are careful because there's like a review system. They don't want to mess up too much. There's a history about their account, so that's how they create the trust in the buyers' minds.
Yeah, they have live chat, and they take it very, very seriously. Like in the West, if you use live chat, a lot of the time you're kind of wasting your time. You get an automated response, and then maybe like 6 hours later, somebody might say something which perhaps isn't very helpful. But Taobao sellers, if you message them or live chat them, they're like straight on it because they really can't risk getting bad reviews.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's very, very customer friendly, I would say, and everything is done to make the experience for the buyer a nice one. But again, as a consumer,
yeah,
and of course, there's a lot of issues. If I did a Google search for Taobao scam.
Oh no!
And I found more than 300,000 results.
Wow!
Right. So don't think that it's all paradise and it's so nice and it's cheap and the sellers are very careful and this and that. Well, there's also a lot of very shady sellers that will create an account, do something. Oh, they map. Okay, let's just create another account, right, from scratch again and forget everything. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. It's not really regulated. It's all sort of regulated through the feedback of customers, and it's very, very consumer level, a consumer level sort of offer. Now, if we look at it in the context of production, that's a big no-no, right? So the thing is, it's extremely convenient. So if you have a couple of engineers somewhere in Shenzhen or in Shanghai or somewhere trying to develop a new kind of product, first they need to do sort of a proof of concept, put things together, just see how it works and if it does the job, right? And then after that, refine it and so on. Well, for the proof of concept, okay, I need to buy such and such component and I need to buy that, this and that. Where will they go? They will go on Taobao to see what's available. They will see what can do the job. They will order, a couple of pieces of this, a couple of pieces of that, and so on and so forth. And then they can study it when it arrives and say, okay, this one would be a better fit. This one feels better, blah, blah, blah. Right? It's very, very tempting, and it's normal. It's human nature. And I would say at the level of the proof of concept, that's probably fine because you're just starting to build your BOM, your bill of material. For engineering purposes, it's very immature yet. You're just trying to see how things work. So that's fine. I have nothing against that. But then what we see very often is that this engineering team for prototype round 2 and prototype rounds 3 and so on will still keep buying, oh yeah, no problem. This this little cable, I get it from Taobao, it's fine, it works just fine. Oh, this little whatever USB port that we plug into it, and so it's fine, it does the job, right, it's fine. And then they do the design around it, and it lands in their bill of material. You look at the bottom and you see a link, a Taobao link, and like, okay. And to me, that's really scary. That's really, really scary. And the closer you are to mass production, the scarier it is. And what we see, sometimes a client comes to us and they already did most of the engineering design work, or all of it. And then they say, oh, we need help to get the tooling right and to get the assembly done and things like that. Okay. And then they say, well, this is the source. This is where we buy it. And we see Taobao, and we're like, no. You must be kidding. This is not a proper source for mass production. Do not do that. Do not do that. And they don't really understand, right? They don't really understand. So there's a few principles, when you develop a new product. At the beginning, it's more conceptual. So again, I understand. You're trying to put things together just to get some feedback from users, just to refine the concept. Fine. But then once you move away from that and you move in the direction of a production intent product design with production intent parts, you have to drop Taobao. You have to work directly with suppliers that will be qualified to be suppliers for mass production. Okay, because they might send you 5 good components from Taobao, and then next prototype you buy 5 or 10 again, and they send you and they're okay, or maybe you buy a dozen and 10 are good. Okay, no problem. And the engineers are not even going to tell you that 2 are bad, right? It's like, okay, we get 10 good ones, and then we put 5 prototypes together. We still have some excess. Okay, life is good. It's cheap. It gets delivered very fast. No worries. Okay, but what happens when you have a first mass production run of 2,000 pieces, and after that 5,000, and after that 10,000? You're going to rely on a consumer level offer of components, and that might mess up your entire production batch, right? For a number of reasons. First, maybe the most scary of all is that they might send you a certain type of component, and then by mistake, or maybe because they think it's really equivalent and it doesn't have any impact, the next batch will be different. The design, the material, whatever, the way it's made will be a little bit different, or quite different. And again, this is consumer level. Consumers will get that. They might not even notice. It's fine, whatever. It's, one at a time. And if it fails, who cares, because it's cheap. But you embed that into an entire product, and the entire product might fail just because of that, or might become non-compliant just because of that inexpensive part that suddenly is different, is made from a different material, is made in a different way, or breaks much more easily, or whatever, right? This happens on Taobao. There's zero consideration given to the authorization of engineering changes. I mean, again, they sell 1 by 1 or 2 by 2 to consumers. They don't care, and they have a stock, and they don't really check what they have in stock. They have a source for the stock, whatever. If the source makes some changes, they might not even notice. It's all very murky when you look at that. Engineering changes don't get notified. There's no questions. Hey, is it okay if instead of 7.5 volt now it's 5 volt, or is it okay if whatever, right? They might derate your component without telling you. They might make the wall a little bit thinner. It could be anything. It might be a slightly different color. It might be different finishing, different whatever, right? So that is really, really scary.
Would the Taobao vendor even know if changes have been made sometimes?
What might happen is that the supplier of the Taobao vendor might make a change. The Taobao vendor might not notice it.
Yeah.
Or might not think it's an issue. And then they set it to your manufacturer that embeds it into the final product. Your product might suddenly become non-compliant because it's no longer the same product that was certified. It might become quite unreliable. It might even not work at all. Who knows what the impact is, right? The aesthetics might be completely off. Who knows, right? That's really the key. Who knows?
And I guess it's going to be even harder to track down why that issue is, because your BOM is still going to say, yes, it's this component from this supplier.
Right. I mean, the Taobao seller, in many cases, will not even know if, I don't know, what kind of metal alloy is it, right? Oh, it's steel. Oh, it was supposed to be brass or what, They just look at the color. They don't really know what's going on in there, right? In most cases, that's what we see. So that's danger number one, is that they might ship something different to you from batch to batch, or maybe maybe 10% of the batch is going to be different. They have no concept about all the proper traceability and engineering change notice and all these good manufacturing practices. They have no clue.
Yeah.
Again, this is designed to be sold one by one or two by two in small quantities most of the time. Okay. Even worse, the item, the part that you are buying, that is part of your product design because it's part of the BOM, might be delisted, right? If it doesn't sell much, or for whatever reason, suddenly it goes end of life, you have no visibility over that, right? If you buy, I don't know, a display and the manufacturer, you buy it from the manufacturer will usually tell you, hey, end of life is probably mid-2023. So are you going to still have productions with this display at that time, right? But if you buy from a Taobao seller, you have no clue. The Taobao seller themselves might disappear because, again, they might have done some kind of scam or something. They might just close their account, or they might get their account closed by Taobao. Okay, so you really building your supply chain on a very, very shaky foundation here.
Yeah.
You're building it on sand next to a big sea, right? So that's really scary. And yeah, another issue with buying from Taobao is that you buy subject to the conditions of sale of Taobao. And if something goes wrong, if they are late in sending things to you or whatever, what do you do? Or if they fail to tell you that there's a change in a new batch, if they have quality issues and so on, what can you do, right? It's not like you can sign a manufacturing agreement with them. It's all part of the conditions, the sales conditions of Taobao. So all of the usual ways of protecting your business are out the window. Suddenly, that's it, finished. You can't do anything. And that's really a problem if you're trying to cover your bases.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that one is related again, but if there's a performance issue or a quality issue, again, you buy, I don't know, you buy a battery supposed to be 10,000 milliamp per hour, but it's 7,500. What do you do, right? Any liability? What if your manufacturer doesn't see the difference, or maybe it's a memory card, or whatever. The manufacturer doesn't see the difference. It's shipped to you, to your customers, and then suddenly you have a big claim. Well, it's not going to go back to the Taobao supplier. They are not going to engage their liability in that. It's all your loss, basically. Right?
I guess you could return products that are not suitable as part of.
Sure. Yeah, if you catch it right away, if you do good incoming QC, you can probably send them back. Yeah.
But that's about it.
Right. And again, if they just disappear in the meantime, if it was a lot of money for them, because usually they sell one by one, and then you bought 500 of them or something, maybe it's a lot of money, and they have a couple of other, let's say, disputes, they might just close their account and bye-bye, right? So that's scary.
Yeah.
So no liability. They might not even be a real company. So you see the information about the Taobao vendor. Sometimes it's an individual, sometimes it's a company, but it doesn't look like there's a very strong vetting process from the Taobao platform, because we have seen for sure firsthand that some of the vendors pretend to be a company, but actually it's a fake company. There's no real company with that name. Okay. And again, who's going to check when you buy a, 30 RMB iPad pouch? You just, okay, you pay for it, and a couple of days later it turns out and it's not too bad, and you're happy about it. You're not going to check up, who's the Taobao seller, right? So this is really scary. Again, they might disappear at any time, and some people are engaged again in suspicious behavior. I mean, fake declaration. They pretend to be under a certain company that doesn't exist, and they sell on Taobao, and it's not tightly regulated. Let's say it this way. This is really proof that anybody and their dog could do it.
Yeah, but you mentioned at the start, about the scale of Taobao. If you think Amazon's large, right, this thing is huge. With 1.4 billion Chinese people, the majority of internet users in China, and maybe other Chinese-speaking countries, I guess, use Taobao habitually all the time, and they sell almost everything on it. And yeah, there's going to be bad actors for sure.
Right. Oh yeah, because it's you can buy on Taobao from many different countries. I mean, obviously in Hong Kong and Macau, a lot of people go on Taobao, but in Malaysia, in a lot of different countries. In some places, they look for someone who knows how to read Chinese to be able to buy on Taobao, because it's consumer level stuff with no assurances of anything, but the price can be so low, right?
Right.
So it's very attractive to a lot of people. No, it's huge in terms of volume and value of the goods delivered. It might be several times bigger than Amazon. It's just crazy. It's really crazy.
But it makes it hard to police. And I mean, you mentioned people, posting fake accounts. People even sell fake goods on there as well. What faith do you have when you give any kind of information to these people, maybe as well? You got to be very careful.
Right. Yeah, correct. So you might be engaging with bad actors, yes. Even though the risk is not that low, not that high, that high. But again, there are some bad actors, and it's not tightly regulated. Another issue, and I guess it's obvious, is you pay the price of, with a minimum order quantity of one, delivered one by one, one piece per order. And suddenly you're going to buy 1,000 of them, 5,000 of them. Obviously, you could get a better pricing. You could get better pricing directly from a manufacturer or even through a trading company, usually, if you know what you're doing. But you keep buying through Taobao, so you keep buying at that price of the individual unit. You keep buying under the platforms, terms and conditions that are not that favorable to you. That is not great. I should not say terms and conditions are not favorable. I should say terms and conditions are not adequate to what you're doing if you're buying for production, right? Another problem, and really, that's sort of the last one on my list, but it is a problem for any company that tries to do things by the book, but to follow the rules, is that you can't really pay and get a fapiao, which is the official tax invoice in China, and get it to count for the VAT rebate and all these kind of things. It's not the usual process of buying from another manufacturer. It's like you walk down the street and you see a flea market, and then you say, oh, okay, I'm going to buy that. That's cool, right? You're not going to have an invoice. You're not going to have anything. Taobao is nearly at that level. That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it. So, again, in a properly run manufacturing company, the finance department would say, no, this is not acceptable. We don't do that. Right? Because then we cannot follow our usual process. We cannot do this. We cannot do that. As I mentioned, there's a number of risks. And that's what we have to explain from time to time to our clients. We will say, no, look, this is not good. If you have some Taobao links in your BOM, you should do some research for proper manufacturers, and we can do that for you. But don't keep that Taobao thing there, even if it's just for a totally inconsequential, piece of labeling that goes in the product or something. Of course, the risk is lower, but as the volumes go higher, why would you keep buying at the Taobao price, at the Taobao payment terms, and the Taobao terms and conditions? Doesn't make much sense. If it's very, very common and packaging materials and things like that, the manufacturer that does the assembly will have their own sources, and they're going to be able to do a better job of that. Don't try to don't try to keep things quote unquote simple with a link to a Taobao product page. Yeah, it doesn't cut it.
Yeah, good. And that's a good wake-up call. I guess a lot of people are going to be buying from Taobao and thinking, yeah, but it's easy and the price is okay. What harm can it do? And the answer is loads. If you think about, when you're scaling up and the security of your entire project. Two of the key topics that we always focus on at Sofeast is transparency and control over your supply chain. And based on what you've just said, when you're buying from Taobao, you get neither of those. Correct.
You don't know where it's made. You don't know how it's made, how consistently it's going to be within the batch, from batch to batch. You might end up having, finding that 30% of the products are defectives. That's a huge risk. Because you have no clue where it's made. Maybe it's made in some kind of really crappy small workshop somewhere, on a night run because they're in a hurry. You don't want that. You don't want that to go into your product, right?
Indeed, no. So Taobao, if you want to buy a new washing basket for, when you're doing your washing, great, no problem. But if you're buying key components for your product, no, not a good idea.
Right. And I mean, for you and me, it's kind of laughable because we've seen so many really shoddy products, and it's like, but I bought it on Taobao, it's cheap, okay, right? So that's really the image of Taobao. But people overseas don't necessarily know that, so they might think, oh, okay, this Taobao thing is really a gold mine, it's great. So many things. It's like, it's magic, right? That's great. Well, not really. Don't. It is really not adequate for a product that is intended to go into mass production. That's really the unequivocal conclusion from our side on that.
Yeah. Well, that's a great way to end it. So by all means, go check out Taobao.com, but not for not for sourcing production components, please.
Right. Right.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Renaud. I'll catch you next week.
Yeah. Thanks, Adrian, and thanks, everybody.
Thanks again for listening to this podcast brought to you by the Sofeast Group. We're on a mission to provide you with everything you need to manufacture effectively in Asia, including inspections, auditing, new product development support, contract manufacturing, 3PL warehousing and fulfillment, and much, much more across Asia's key manufacturing areas. Visit us at sofeast.com, that's SOFEAST.com, to learn more and get help. If you've enjoyed the podcast today, please do rate, review and share because it will really help others discover us too.